Rui, a boy of 15 who still has no magical powers, is often the victim of bullying by his girlfriend Elena. Elena is Rui's friend who bullies him in every possible way because he doesn't have any magical skills. On this day, Elena, as usual, mocks Rui. In this world, almost everyone has at least some unique magical power, while Rui did not have it, which made him very upset. In addition, Rui had problems not only with magic, but also with sports, which only upset him even more. Unlike Rui, Elena learned to use magic at the age of 3. In the process of growing up, the number of Elena's magical skills became more and more. In addition, Rui was even more upset not only by the superiority of Elena, but also by the fact that she would never be able to understand all his pain. Elena also trained Rui in magic, hoping that sooner or later he would also be able to gain some kind of magical power. However, Rui was not very happy with the fact that it was Elena who was training him, from which the girl did not enjoy. At one point, Rui simply cannot withstand all the onslaught that constantly surrounds him. Then he tells Elena that today he wants to practice magic on his own. Elena was surprised by this decision, and she starts a fight with Rui, in which she tells him that people like him can never learn magic alone, thus trying to provoke Rui into fighting her. At one point, Elena breaks down and tells Rui that since he is unable to use even the simplest magic, then he is just as miserable a loser as his dead parents. These words touched Rui's soul very much, since his parents died a long time ago when Rui was still very young. Then Rui, without restraining all his anger at Elena, tells her that from now on he will no longer meet with her. Elena could not believe what she heard, from which she was simply at a loss. Rui said that he did not even see Elena as a friend, as he was very annoyed by her arrogant behavior. With these words, Rui ran away from Elena towards the forest, while Elena herself could not believe all of the above. After such an unpleasant conversation, Rui after a while was able to reach the forest, where he decided to start practicing magic. In preparation for casting the spell, Rui attempts to use wind magic. However, Rui, as before, did not succeed, from which he was extremely disappointed with himself. Rui still couldn't stop thinking about what Elena had said about his parents. A little later, Rui pulls himself together and continues to try to summon wind magic. After several attempts, Rui again began to think that he, as usual, did not succeed. Rui also noticed that some other atmosphere reigned in the forest recently. Rui thinks that the atmosphere in the forest has become different because of the monsters that can live in this forest, and he decides to leave the forest as soon as possible. As Rui started to leave, he saw a very strange, glowing hole in the ground, from which emanated very strong magic that even he could sense. Rui decides to go back and tell everyone else about the hole, but due to negligence, he falls into this very hole. After the fall, Rui briefly lost consciousness, and after a few minutes he wakes up and sees that he was in some strange place, in which at first glance, there was nothing. After Rui woke up, he began to remember everything that happened to him before he got here. As Rui was thinking, a beautiful and buxom woman in a black revealing robe appeared behind him. Rui was very confused at the sight of a woman, because he had never met such beautiful women in his life. Taking a closer look, Rui notices the woman has small horns on her head, believing her to be a demon. Rui read in one book that demons are extremely cruel and cunning creatures that can control very strong magic. The beautiful woman confirmed Rui's guess, telling him that he immediately guessed that she was a demon. Out of confusion, Rui somewhat clumsily introduced himself to the demon and said that it was the first time he had seen such a demon. The demon was very surprised by Rui's courage, despite the fact that the elders in his village told the children about demons, that they are very dangerous for people. Despite this, Rui said that he was apparently not intimidated by this demon due to the fact that she was very beautiful. From such words, the demon was very embarrassed, because for the last tens of thousands of years, no one had ever praised her for anything, especially for her beauty. Rui noticed how embarrassed the demon was, and he immediately began to ask her forgiveness for such unexpected words. After that, another girl appeared behind Rui, who was already smaller and with tanned skin, and she also had a long, scaly tail and wings. Rui greeted the girl, which she did not like at all, but she was surprised by his courage. After that, the girl introduces herself as the 7th Dragon Queen. After hearing Rui, he was very worried, since dragons were considered the most powerful race in the world. The girl was pleased with the way she introduced herself to Rui, thus she surprised him very much. After that, the girl asked Rui if he knew who this demon was. After hearing this, the demon remembers that she never introduced herself to Rui. Then the woman introduced herself as Destarosa, the 66th demon queen who rules over all the darkness and chaos of this world. After that, Rui was extremely frightened and greatly shocked by what he heard at the same time. However, Rui still didn't fully understand if they could really be the demon queen and the dragon queen. Destarosa thought that Rui didn't see her as a demon queen just because he thought she was beautiful, while the dragon queen didn't understand how Destarosa was so easily embarrassed by his compliments. After that, they started a small quarrel, looking at which Rui thought that they both got along well with each other and probably even were friends. During this quarrel, they both decide to reincarnate and show Rui their true form. In the process of reincarnation, Destarosa's clothes were torn almost completely. Meanwhile, the Dragon Queen's outfit had completely disappeared and a hard, scaly layer began to appear in some places. At this time, Rui felt an extremely powerful flow of magical energy that he had never felt. After the reincarnation, the Dragon Queen turned into a huge and formidable dragon, and Destarosa found a new, even more revealing outfit than she had before. After that, Rui was completely convinced that there was a demon queen and a dragon queen in front of him. Rui recalled a legend in which a long time ago there lived a hero who had talents for magic, swordsmanship, and a good-natured disposition. Once this hero saved the world from the Queen of Dragons and the Queen of Demons, thereby he saved people from their villainy, after which he himself disappeared. Then Rui realized that these were the same Dragon Queen and Demon Queen that this hero imprisoned here. However, Rui did not understand why they were not defeated, but only imprisoned here. Back then, he assumed that the Dragon Queen and the Demon Queen were so strong that he couldn't completely defeat them, but only imprisoned them in this empty space. Then he thought that they might know how they could get out of here, and he decides to ask them about it. After Rui's question, Destarosa tells him that getting out of here is simply impossible. Then Rui was in despair that he would spend the rest of his life here. The Dragon Queen only added that if they knew how to get out of here, they would not be here anymore. After that, the Dragon Queen decides to show Rui her seal, which she got when she got here. The Dragon Queen said that this seal was placed on them by the hero who left them here in captivity for many years. She also added that it is because of this seal that their souls are now closely connected to this place. Then Rui began to look for this seal on his body, and as it turned out, he did not have such a seal. Then Destarosa began to undress Rui to try to find the seal of imprisonment on him. As it turned out, Rui really did not have any seal, and no one knew why he did not have a seal. Then Rui said that he got here after he fell into some strange hole in the ground. Destarosa thought that he had come here because of an unexplained accident. Destarosa also suggested that he could still get out of here. Hearing this, Rui said that he was ready to do anything to leave this strange place. Hearing this, the Dragon Queen and Demon Queen were surprised by Rui's loud promises. Rui, in turn, did not fully understand what exactly they wanted from him. Then Destarosa said that Rui could make a hole in this place through which he could get out. Rui then said that he couldn't use magic on his own, and thus he couldn't make a hole in this space. Destarosa told Rui that he couldn't not use magic at all. Then Destarosa offers Rui to train him in order to increase his magical powers. For a better understanding, Destarosa explained to Rui that magic is like a muscle, and the more he uses it, the stronger it becomes. But despite this, if he goes too far with his efforts, then his magic can completely end, and then he can die from it. Destarosa also added that for the most effective training, he will have to bring his condition almost to death as often as possible. Destarosa said that 500 years of training would be enough for Rui, which shocked him very much, thinking that he would simply not live. Then the Dragon Queen told Rui that time is different here, and that here 1 year equals 1 day on Earth. Then if Rui spends 500 years in this space, then only 500 days will pass on Earth. The Dragon Queen said that if they trained him, he could get out of here. Rui thought that they would not help him just like that, and then they said that in return he would help them get out, and he could not refuse such an outcome of events. The next day, Destarosa began Rui's training, which he was very grateful for. Destarosa reminded Rui that it would take him 500 years to get all of the strongest magical techniques. Rui wanted to know if time in this place really goes as the Dragon Queen said. Destarosa said that this was true, and that she once checked it herself with the help of magic. Then Rui remembered the elder in the village who took care of him when his parents died. He thought that the elder there would worry about him, and that after all these trainings, he would definitely return to him. He told Destarosa that he would try his best to get out of here as soon as possible. After saying that, she strokes Rui's head, thus praising his aspiration. Rui remembered how before his mother died, he also stroked his head, which gave Rui a pleasant warm sensation that he had not felt for a very long time. However, Destarosa asked for forgiveness if he did die here, causing Rui's emotional mood to change to a more depressing one. While training with Destarosa, Rui practiced his magical skills for a long time. From such training, Rui crawled to the Dragon Queen completely exhausted. The Dragon Queen realized from Rui's emaciated state that Destarosa was teaching him very well. No sooner had Rui regained his strength than the Dragon Queen was ready to train him. The Dragon Queen said that she would train Rui not in magic, but in a special Qigong technique. The Qigong technique was unique in that it fully revealed the full potential of any magician. There were very few people in the human world who used the Qigong technique, but this technique was not inferior to ordinary magic in strength. The Dragon Queen told Rui that if he mastered this technique, he could easily defeat even a dragon. The study of Qigong technique is based on 9 exercises, which are divided into attack and defense exercises. Any person who can learn all the exercises will be able to overcome any difficulties in his path. Rui did not understand why no one used such powerful magic. The Dragon Queen explained that this technique is very difficult to master. She also explained that in recent years it has become much easier for people to use magic, and that everyone can safely use basic magic, while Qigong techniques need to be diligently studied for years. This didn't scare Rui too much, since for him, Qigong training should be just as hard as regular magic training. The Dragon Queen also added that a person does not need any talent to learn Qigong techniques, and all training was based on meticulous training. Rui said that he will try his best and he can't wait to start training. However, the Dragon Queen didn't mention that Rui had to memorize everything he would learn. After an explanation, Destarosa appeared to them and said that the training program would change every week. The Dragon Queen thought that Rui should learn Qigong before Destarosa could teach him how to use magic. 10 years after Rui ended up in the infinite hell, his magic skills have become much stronger. Destarosa was happy with the result of her training, but she also understood that Rui needed to continue training. Destarosa noticed all the progress of Rui and saw how he became a real magician. Destarosa was also surprised by how Rui never once showed her fatigue during all the time of her continuous training. At the end of the training, Destarosa told Rui that he had had enough for today, but Rui claimed that he could still continue despite his near-total lack of magical energy. Rui also said that he tried very hard in training and that he can't just take and start to rest. Destarosa thought that Rui had an unhealthy desire to master magical skills. Then she decides to tell him that he tries very well to prove himself in all her training. She also added that despite how weak a magician he was in his world, all his efforts bring him results. Afterwards, Destarosa decides to transfer some of her magic power to Rui through her magic channel. She explained to him that mages like him had very little magic power, so she could only transfer a little magic energy to him. She also explained that if he does not use this magic, then his magic power will weaken, and over time, he will not be able to use his magic at all, which greatly frightened Rui. After that, Destarosa began the process of transferring magical energy to Rui. While she was transferring some of her magical energy to him, she noticed that during the entire time of his training, Rui's magic channels became more stretched compared to other people. After transferring magical energy, Destarosa kept telling Rui that with every training, he and his magic are getting stronger. At first, such words of Destarosa touched Rui very much, since no one had ever praised him as much as now. A little later, he calmed down and told Destarosa that he was very pleased to hear such warm words of support. Rui also said that he was very happy that he came to this place and was with them, affectionately calling Destarosa sister. She was unimaginably embarrassed by what Rui had called her, causing her to simply pass out. At first, Rui became very worried about Destarosa, but the Dragon Queen told him that she was just crazy, and that she would come to her senses soon. After seeing this, the Dragon Queen told Rui to rest before training with her. During training, Rui was able to do 100 push-ups with a very heavy rock on his back. After that, the Dragon Queen told Rui to rest before the next exercise. She was pleasantly surprised at how the first visible results of her training began to appear. She also drew attention to how after 10 years of training, Rui was able to master the Qigong technique. While she was thinking about Rui's abilities, she noticed how he, hiding from her, continued to do push-ups, which she did not like very much. She was very unhappy with this behavior, telling Rui that he should not overexert himself under any circumstances. Rui said that because he was extremely weak in his world, he should train as much as possible. The Dragon Queen told him that this was all nonsense and that his physique was more than strong and durable, which Rui simply did not believe. He said that he was the weakest and slowest in his world, and that the Dragon Queen would not be able to understand him because she was very strong. The Dragon Queen realized that Rui was a child with complexes and that she needed to fix it somehow. Then she tells Rui that thanks to his efforts, his physique is getting stronger with each workout. She explained to him that he considered himself weak only due to the fact that before he simply did not know how effectively he could use the body. She also drew his attention to the fact that his body has a very efficient regeneration and that he should be grateful to nature for being born so strong. Rui was very touched by the Dragon Queen's words about his unique physique. After that, he decides to ask the Dragon Queen about what her parents were like. She replied that her parents died when she was very young and that she did not even remember their faces. After this question, Rui began to feel a little awkward after his question, thinking that it was unpleasant for her to remember it. But instead, the Dragon Queen just chuckled and told Rui not to think about it, and that she also had a strong body that she got after she was born. After that, Rui could not contain his emotions and rushed into the arms of the Dragon Queen, thinking to himself that they had a lot in common. She did not fully understand what exactly was happening, to which Rui replied that she also tried very hard. After that, the Dragon Queen realized what exactly was the matter, and after a short hug, she began to calm him down. After that, Rui felt better, and he said that in her time, the Dragon Queen was the same as he used to be, and that he would no longer whine. At this time, Destarosa had already managed to come to her senses, and she understood that everything had worked out for them with each other. In the 100th year of his stay in the infinite hell, Rui had become much stronger, and he could even use some magic tricks. He wanted to show the Dragon Queen his results, and he called her as Rio. Then she remembered how once Rui asked her if she had any name. Previously, when she terrified people, everyone knew her as the Dragon Queen, and no one saw her as a person. And after hearing that, he decided to refer to her as Rio by the name. Rui pulled Rio out of his thoughts, and he wanted to know if his magic had improved. Rio also said that his magic skills have become much stronger compared to those that he demonstrated in past training. After that, Rio began to praise Rui for being able to master half of all Qigong offensive and defensive moves in just 100 years. Rui later told Rio that every time she touches him, his heart beats faster every groove. Rio was shocked by what she heard, while Rui went on to say that her skin is very soft and that she smells delicious. Rui didn't stop complimenting Rio, which made her more and more embarrassed. After that, she began to beat Rui for what he had just said to her, considering him to be a pervert. Rui did not understand what exactly he said about her, thinking that he said too much. At this time, Rio, while thinking about what Rui had just said to her, was also thinking about how much he was embarrassing her. At that moment, Destarosa approached them so that she could discuss some questions with Rio about further training. Then Rui decides to leave Destarosa with Rio and continue training away from them. Destarosa drew Rio's attention to how they were able to become friends with each other during their training. She reminded Rio of how, before Rui was here, they were constantly fighting each other to the death. Then they both realized how much the infinite hell had changed since the appearance of Rui. Then Destarosa thought about how everything became so fun for them from that moment on. After that, Rui decides to approach Destarosa with a question about his magical abilities. However, instead of listening to Rui, she tells him not to call her by her first name again. Rui then tries to remember how he should address Destarosa. And when he remembered, he addressed her as Sis, from which Destarosa almost fainted. After that, Destarosa turned on Rui with open arms. Afterwards, Rui and Destarosa begin a training session where Rui shows her his ability in using his fire magic skills. Destarosa was very pleased with how, after 100 years in an endless hell, his skills had become so strong. However, despite such a rapid increase in abilities, their moment of parting is getting closer and closer.